Hello, and welcome to Hearts and Stripes podcast. Well, no, not really. Just kidding. This is Bree, Carroll. I am the Military Marriage Day founder and the host of Hearts and Stripes podcast. So for this segment, I actually thought we would mix it up a little bit and kind of do it podcast style because that is one of my favorite things to do. On Hearts and Stripes podcast, I talk about strengthening military marriages, and actually that is how this holiday kind of started to develop. It started from me really wanting to meet the need that I saw around my own friends who were separating. And when I say separating, I mean getting divorces. So the podcast became my way of trying to bring people on smarter than me to talk about marriage, to share advice, and to give resources to equip couples so that they could really be marriage strong. So today, as we talk about love talk, I figured we would talk in my very favorite way on my very favorite type of platform, which is via podcast. So go ahead, pull up a chair because guest who is my host for this chat, it's you. Don't worry, I'm gonna move your mic right up here. So make sure you lean in and join this discussion because you are my very special guest. So there's something that I need you to know before we get started in our interview, in our chat, all about love talk. And that's I'm gonna ask a couple of questions and I want to get your feedback. So the way that you're going to give feedback is just comments below. I really want to hear from you. So make sure when I ask you the questions, you are commenting below and giving me your honest opinion, your thoughts, and kind of start committing to some things as we talk about communicating love, because at the end of this interview, I absolutely want you to be stronger in your marriage and have a game plan as to how we are going to do that. Okay, you ready? Put your headphones on and we will get started. So, welcome to Hearts and Stripes podcast. I am your host, Bree Carroll, and I have my special guest, say your name, here, and we're going to talk all about love and how we communicate love. So I love this particular day on our Military Marriage Day countdown because we are focusing on love notes. A little later, you will hear from our amazing team at It's a Military Life that partners with Veteran Pen Pal Project as we talked about the Love Notes initiative. So today we wanted to make sure that we broke down different ways to communicate love, and we will dive into later how we did that through some of the forms that we're going to discuss today. So you ready to start? Okay, let's break down the how. Because when we're talking about communicating love, we absolutely have to talk about the how, right? And there's two ways that I really want you to think about when it comes to the how. So that's verbal and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication, that's one that typically we know, right? It's what we're doing right now in this interview. We are talking, we are using our words to express ourselves, right? Nonverbal are those gestures, those facial expressions you may be getting in trouble with. I know I do. Don't feel bad. And other ways that you can express love, like through a hug, you can communicate with body language and different forms of nonverbal communication. Now, one thing that I have to be transparent about that I need to work on when it comes to my verbal and nonverbal communication, it more so deals with verbal, it's tone. It's not what you say sometimes, it's how you say it. I've been hearing this all my life. I'm from Jersey. I could blame it on that, or I can take responsibility. For the sake of this show, we're taking responsibility. So you want to be aware of your verbal and your nonverbal communication. So let's get some examples of that. I kind of gave you one as I talked about our wonderful partners at Veteran Pen Pal Project, right? One way to communicate love that we are encouraging throughout today is writing letters. So get your envelope, get your stamps, maybe even get your Military Marriage Day postcard and write down the words that you maybe are hesitant to express out loud. I will say, though, as a podcaster, I love to talk, and I really think makes a difference when you can hear the person communicate love. So say it. It's very simple. Lean into this mic or maybe lean over to your spouse if they are near you and communicate your love verbally. I mean, right now, go ahead. I'll wait. Did you say it? Are you saying it now? Okay, go ahead and make sure that you are using verbal communication. When you use verbal communication, that's when you are inserting that tone, that compassion when you're talking to your spouse, and you can really communicate love in an effective way. Other ways to do that, we love to use technology, of course. Drop a text. You can even do a voice memo so that they can hear that tone, right? And also FaceTime. These are awesome ways for you to communicate your love. And we're going to jump over to the where, because these examples can help you practically communicate love regardless of where either of you are. If you guys are going through a TDY or a deployment season, drop a heart in the comments because I am talking to you. We want to love on you guys for a second and let you know that this Military Marriage Day celebration absolutely is inclusive, and we want to wrap our arms around you virtually, of course, as you celebrate your marriage virtually, which is why Military Marriage Day is set up this way. We are encouraging you to connect, of course, with these letters through text and via FaceTime as much as possible, because connection is our theme for this year, and particularly for those who are currently geographically separated. So we are loving on you. Shout out to you. You are my special guest for this conversation, especially because I have a heart for people who are going through those seasons and celebrating Military Marriage Day. We know it is challenging, but I hope that this conversation is encouraging to you and it helps you get different ideas of how to think outside the box and utilize this time as an opportunity to still connect with your spouse. So we talked about the how, we talked about where a little bit, whether you're geographically separated or if you are in the same space, you can still communicate love. Let's talk about some fun wheres though. Where can you communicate love? Well, you can communicate love in the bathroom. Leave some sticky notes maybe around or maybe right on the mirror. Communicate love in the bathroom. Honey is in the shower and you can communicate love that way too. In the car, while you're driving, in your home. I'm basically saying there's an opportunity to communicate love everywhere. So take advantage and definitely be creative as you communicate love. Now, special guest of mine, I need you to lean in really quickly and answer this question for me. Who should be the one to communicate love? Challenging question. I know that you've got it. Drop it in the comments if you think you know where I'm going with this on the who should communicate love. That's right. I'm starting to see it and I dropped it in there myself. You should be the one to communicate love. And yes, we want both partners to communicate love. But the key here is that you take initiative, that you're not waiting on someone else to be the first to communicate love. Right? You can be the first one to send the text message. You can be the first one to say, I love you. It is okay. And the reason why I say take initiative is because oftentimes you can get in this cycle where you're waiting for someone else to meet an expectation that they are either A, unaware of, or two, are unable to or don't have the capacity to fulfill at the time. So I would say take the initiative and see if you can't start sparking something in your relationship and planting those seeds of love so that you can see the fruit of it from your spouse. Leading by example is huge when it comes to communicating love. And I will say, for my couples out there, I like to encourage you to design a marriage that complements your core values. It's in alignment with your personality and just the tone of your relationship. So communicating love and taking that initiative, that may be frequent or infrequently, and we'll talk about that in a second, but do what is right for you and take the initiative. Another thing that I want to note here as kind of a side note is you may need to start communicating your needs. 5 love languages is always discussed when we're talking about communicating love. And it's an awesome book, and a book that was referenced previously. So I won't dive into all of it, but I will say taking that initiative of communicating love may mean telling the other person, like, hey, I need my love tank to be filled. And here is how you can do so. Maybe it's acts of service. Maybe it's words of affirmations, which we'll get into in just a second. But you need to communicate, not just taking the initiative of love, but also saying, and this is how I'd like you to communicate love back to me. Don't make it a guessing game, guys. Don't make it hard. Figure out for yourself what you would like and communicate that to your spouse. That is love. That's being honest about what you need and your wants. And I like the way it's said when they say clear is kind. When you're clear about the things that you need, when you're clear about your communication, when you're clear about what's going on in your relationship, that is kindness shown to your spouse, right? So we kind of touched on it a little bit. The what of this love talk, words of affirmations. That's the what that I want to focus on just for a second as we talk about this verbal and nonverbal communication. But I do want to couple that with saying that the what, those words of affirmation, need to be 3 things: positive, complimentary, and honest. Positive, because your communication of love should be just that. We don't want to be Debbie Downers and be negative as we're trying to communicate love. Complimentary, not just paying someone a compliment, but fitting the tone of what is authentic to your relationship to ensure that they don't think you're just doing something weird and being out of character, right? So you want to make sure that it's complimentary, and it's okay to kind of open up. That's a great thing, but you get what I'm saying. If you're not super mushy and it's not going to be received as being authentic to you, then that's maybe something you want to stay away from. And honest, you want to make sure that as you communicate love, you are communicating it honestly, because they will be able to see if you are just saying that you love them, but your actions do not align, right? So we want to make sure that we are being honest in our verbal and nonverbal, and we want to make sure that there's alignment in both of those things. So, special guest of mine, when do you think we should do this? I think we talked about it a little bit, but when can you commit to doing this? That's my question. Drop in the comments when you are going to commit to communicating love. Maybe for some people, you may be typing that you will communicate to doing it daily. That might be a big lift for other people who are busy, or that's just not how the cycle that they're in right now. They might not be feeling it, to be very honest. Maybe you could commit to a weekly text message that communicates love, or a weekly verbal communication of love. Maybe you are going to commit to writing those love notes on a monthly basis, whether they are sitting on the couch next to you or they are away. Committing to writing monthly to mix it up may be a great way to communicate love. So we've kind of covered a lot in this interview. You have been an amazing guest, but we're going to wrap things up really quickly with my favorite segment for any interview, and that is our heart tracks. So on Hearts and Stripes podcast, I typically close out by asking my guests for a heart track or a theme song that kind of wraps up what we discussed. So I've given you guys a head start. If you head to Spotify right now and you search MMD 2021, you will find that we have our very own playlist. Yep, I started you off with some heart tracks. But what I need you to do before we end this interview is drop in the comments below your heart track, or what is your song that will help you remember to communicate love. Maybe it's your favorite love song. Maybe it's the song that you danced to when you got married. Or maybe it's a new love song that is on the radio that you have been putting on replay throughout this Military Marriage Day countdown. Whatever that song is, put it in the comments below, and we'll be sure to add it to the MMD 2021 playlist on Spotify for all to enjoy. Now, while you are dropping those songs down below, I wanted to just share for a second a thank you to our sponsors for Military Marriage Day. So a huge thank you to First Command, Armed Forces Insurance, and the Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation. I also wanted to highlight one of the things that we're doing here, podcast style. Podcasts are an awesome resource for you to get equipped in your marriage, and you will be able to look for every other podcast that is communicating love and equipping you in your relationship on militarymarriageday.com. Surprise special announcement, August the 14th, we will actually drop a resource hub to highlight other podcasters and other podcast resources, books, programs for Military Marriage Day. So you won't have to do the endless Google search when it comes to trying to find resources. It'll be right at your fingertips at militarymarriageday.com. And on that note, let me shout out Lindsay Kavanagh of Married to Military, another podcaster who was actually featured, and you heard from her on Tuesday. So I hope all of that announcements at the end has given you enough time to drop your song below. I can't wait to see all the amazing songs that you put in the comments, and we'll be sure to add those to our Military Marriage Day playlist on Spotify. Well, we are going to wrap up this episode with the favorite outro that I love to do. Typically, you hear it at the end of every Heart to Heart, and it is simply that this is Hearts and Stripes podcast. We are the few, the proud that aim high and are forged by love. Always ready, always there. We are Mill Marriage Strong. See y'all.